Hi, Ambassador Mike Levine with Fox News. Can you speak with us briefly about the attack in Benghazi?
This is not an appropriate time, but thanks for your interest.
Why not speak now? You've spoken before. Did you speak with the campaign at all before you went on the Sunday shows?
Please, thank you very much.
If you spoke earlier about what you knew at the time, why not speak now about what you know now? Ambassador, can you just explain why not speak now?
Nice to see you guys.
Can you just, one point on the video, is it still the case that it might have played a role?
Well, that was UN Ambassador Susan Rice, trying hard to avoid the Fox News cameras when she arrived back in the U.S. last Thursday, being questioned about those comments she made on the Sunday shows right after the Libya attack. She has not spoken on camera about it since. Then this weekend, out comes an article in the Washington Post citing an unnamed senior intelligence official titled, quote, CIA documents supported Susan Rice's description of Benghazi attacks. Go over to the LA Times, also citing an unnamed intelligence official, carries the headline, quote, no evidence found of al-Qaeda role in Libya attack, creating questions about both the intelligence and how these stories came to appear right before tonight's big foreign policy debate. Joining me now, Fox News contributor Tucker Carlson, who is editor and founder of thedailycaller.com, and Marjorie Clifton, who is a former consultant to the Obama campaign. Welcome to you both. So I want to start with this. Stephen Hayes wrote a very comprehensive and interesting piece at the Weekly Standard trying to digest the media pieces that came out on Libya this weekend, and this is where I want to begin. He calls this, he says, Tucker, that this is an effort to write al-Qaeda out of the story, that LA Times piece and what we're hearing more and more from some in the media and the administration is an effort to write al-Qaeda out of the story. No evidence found of al-Qaeda role in Libya attack, but the body of the piece goes on to not actually show that.
Right. And what, in fact, the CIA, quote, talking points do not show is that the intelligence community concluded that this video was in any way responsible for what happened in Benghazi. Look, here's how you know that this is an orchestrated political effort on the part of the Obama White House. You have unnamed CIA officers attacking their own agency for its intelligence failures. That does not happen, trust me, in Washington without a pretty aggressive nudge from those in political power, in this case from the Obama White House. There's just no way the CIA is going to voluntarily take responsibility for this breakdown in intelligence unless pushed to. And so that's where this is coming from, make no mistake.
Marjorie, help me understand, as a journalist and not a political consultant, how that narrative on the video helps the administration. So if the narrative is Susan Rice was wrong, but she was wrong because our administration's intelligence sources were completely and utterly wrong and failed, how does that help the Obama administration?
Well, I agree. If they wanted to release this information, they should have released it 3 weeks ago when she was out on the trail talking about it. But, what we're looking at and talking about is media bias. Media bias has existed since the media began. And so this is nothing new, nor is the idea of leaking. I mean, the Bush administration also was notorious for leaking information in timely ways and sadly, I think, was responsible widely for bringing us into a war that killed thousands of Americans and cost the country trillions of dollars. And there was proof on the table that Cheney, for example, released information about Sandra Plume, that we had connection, weapons of mass destruction, all these things being reported on. The worst case scenario we'll see with Libya is a show of intelligence blunders. And while that's not great, I feel like it's not as far. And so it's not quite, you look at apples to apples, this is something that politically happens across the board.
Is there, Tucker, something more to it than that? I mean, is it because Mike Rogers, chairman of the House Intel Committee, is raising questions about this administration releasing documents selectively that may be helpful to an argument President Obama wants to make tonight, but not the full picture that would really actually tell us what happened?
Well, look, Marjorie is correct in that all White Houses attempt to shape news coverage. The difference between this and previous administrations is those administrations faced a hostile and skeptical press corps from day one, and this one has basically cooperated with the press corps that is fundamentally on its side. I would say there's no good explanation for what has turned out to be a lie that the White House told consistently for the first 10 days, which is this was precipitated by, caused by a YouTube video. That's not true. It never was true. Nobody who followed it carefully ever believed it was true, and yet that was the storyline. Clearly, they felt there was a political advantage in telling those untruths. That, to me, is the crux of this, not an intelligence failure. It's a failure of truth-telling on the part of the White House and its spokesman.
How about that, Marjorie? Because they wanted to say that it was about a video for so long, and yet both this report that was put out by the Washington Post and, by the way, the reporting that predated it by weeks from Eli Lake and Newsweek and the Daily Beast cite a CIA memo, CIA talking points that were supposedly put out there, and none of those talking points specifically blames the video.
Well, everyone's out there trying to get their angle. I mean, the idea here is that both parties want to be on the offensive when it comes to Libya into tonight's debates. And so everybody's scrambling. I mean, you've had Darrell Issa, head of the House Oversight Committee, on the media all weekend trying to release documents on Libya, further incriminate the administration.
Don't we want that? Don't we forget whether it incriminates the administration or admonish. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, right. We want good information.
We want the information.
We want good and we want fair information, no question. But what we don't want is that they're using this information to play politics on either side of the aisle. And that's where it doesn't benefit the American people. It doesn't do anybody any favors. And what we have to look at here is, what does this tell us? And what this might tell us is we need to better our intelligence structures. It doesn't necessarily incriminate an administration for having done something illegal or something, for example, like lying about weapons of mass destruction. So those are two very different things. But absolutely, the media needs to be held accountable no matter what. They report on what they're given.
Exonerates
and
was the look I was looking for. Exonerates was the word I was looking for. Tucker, I'll give you the last word.
So Bush was bad, therefore this is okay. I mean, that's not much of a justification. And by the way, let me just say, there's the last of the presidential debates is in a few hours. You're at the scene. For the press to be carrying the administration's water at this late date, 2 weeks before a presidential election, on the night of a debate, is a pretty heavy statement, I would say.
All right, panel. Good debate. Thank you. Well, we've heard a lot of concern this election cycle about the potential for vote.